So in the last video, we talked about the fact that English naturally divides into stressed and unstressed syllables, and that English poets, back from the beginning, from before even Papa Chaucer, have been using meter, have been using a deliberate alternation of unstressed and stressed syllables. They've been using meter, which means measure, and they divide things into feet. Now, one of the first hangups from people when you start to hear, yes, there are stressed and unstressed syllables, you start to get fixated on the fact that certain words have stressed and unstressed syllables. So for example, the word household is a stressed followed by an unstressed syllable. Household, not household, household. Wrong, just doesn't work. Well, actually, household is a word that is naturally trochaic. It is a trochee, T-R-O-C-H-E-E, the opposite of our friend the iamb, which is unstressed, then stressed. The beat is on the twos. Okay. If poetry is words set to musical effect, using the words themselves to create a musical effect, let me tell you, poetry is arranging words to create a musical effect. Meter is the percussion. It is the rhythm section. You ain't gonna get nowhere without a good rhythm section and some percussion. It's just gonna sound like some bad emo college radio nonsense. Unacceptable. Poets are going to use that rhythm section. They're going to use that percussion. The preferred meter, the one Chaucer uses, Shakespeare uses, Spenser uses, Milton uses, and lots of other poets use, Wordsworth uses, lots of Brit Lit 2 people use it, American poets use it. The favorite is called Iambic Pentameter. It is 5 packets or feet, packets of syllables, feet, and they tend to be, the beat is on the twos. So shuffle. And 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. Okay. You're going to get hung up when you start to hear, yes, household is a trochaic word. So how could we ever use it in a poem that's iambic? Shakespeare loves iambic pentameter. Household puts the stress in the wrong place. How are you even going to use that word? Easily. Don't think about the words themselves. Think about the feet, the units of measure, very English units of measure, feet, which sometimes are more than one word, 2 one-syllable words, sometimes involve parts of another word. So I might say to you, 2 households, both alike in dignity. 2 households, both alike in dignity. 6 words, 10 syllables. But who's counting? You are, because it's class. You're counting. We have a word alike is very much an iambic word and is right there. It's a foot in itself. Alike. Alike, alike, alike. Household is trochaic. How does this happen? Shakespeare arranges the words, Chaucer, Milton, whoever, arrange the words to create that pattern that goes separate from the words themselves. The syllables don't just make the words, they also make the feet. So 2 households, both. Single syllable words tend to be stressed or unstressed by position, by whether they're near a stressed or unstressed syllable on either side. 2 households, both alike in dignity. I'll get to dignity in a second. 2 is unstressed because house and household is stressed. 2 house is an iamb. Holds both. Holds 2 household holds both. That's your second foot is holds both. Third foot alike in dignity is stressed. It's a 3-syllable word. If it were only arranging words that were already iambic together, you could never use a 3-syllable word because it's more than a foot. Dignity is stressed on the first and less and unstressed in the middle. Dignity. Dignity? No. Dignity. I'm going to give you a couple cheap and, frankly, somewhat silly, uh, shortcuts. When you get stuck, if you're home alone and no one's listening, it can help when you're trying to learn Scansion to adopt a really bad Arnold Schwarzenegger accent. I was a teenage boy in the 80s. I was therefore issued an extremely bad Arnold Schwarzenegger impression. Every teenage boy in America in the 80s had one. So, two households both alike in dignity. Because Arnold speaks an even more Germanic language naturally. He stresses syllables even more than we normally do because he's a native German speaker. And German is really a very Germanic language, it turns out. So, he also, Arnold also pronounces California exactly the way an Elizabethan would. California. Every single syllable given full value. Two households both alike in dignity. Dignity, like in dig is your fourth foot. Itty, not itty, but itty is the fifth one. Two households both alike in dignity, if everyone really has seen. I want to go back to dignity for a second. Dignity is stressed on the Y is stressed, the IT is unstressed, which is why it doesn't rhyme with city. This is like the banana, Louisiana problem. As I said in the last video, rhyme is an effect of the last stressed syllable and any unstressed syllable that comes after it. So you can have a pretty city. You can have the city committee. You can be on the pretty committee, the city committee, the itty bitty committee. You can be on the Walter Mitty committee. The dignity committee doesn't rhyme. Dignity city. Different. Because city, pretty, committee, Walter Mitty stress the IT syllable and not the Y. It's an unstressed Y. Therefore, city and dignity should rhyme but don't. What does Shakespeare rhyme dignity with? Mutiny. Dignity, mutiny almost rhymes. Why? Because it's just that stressed Y. If you don't know the poem I'm borrowing these lines from, check it out sometime. It's fairly good. It was kind of a hit. The thing that really tells iambic pentameter apart is that the 10th syllable is really always going to be stressed. One more thing, I'll talk about wider interpretive issues, but one last thing. Sometimes an iambic pentameter line has an 11th unstressed syllable. We call this a feminine ending. Is that sexist? Yeah, probably. Why is it named that? I wasn't at the meeting. I don't know. I would have argued for something else. I wasn't there. It happened before I was born. But it's the word people use, so it's the word being used in other English departments. So I've got to teach you the terms that other people use, so when you write your papers, it's not idiosyncratic. Chaucer, Shakespeare, Milton, etc. allow themselves to cheat. They can sneak in that unstressed syllable at the end and the 11th. It's got to be the last syllable has to be unstressed. Two households alike in dignity is exactly 10, and the 10th one is stressed. The 10th syllable is always stressed. If there's an 11th one, it's going to be unstressed, feminine ending. Why iambic pentameter all the time? Chaucer likes it, Chaucer uses it, Shakespeare uses it, Spenser uses it, Milton uses it. Some people will tell you that it is intrinsically wonderful. Why do we use it? Well, Chaucer uses it, Shakespeare uses it, Milton uses it, Spenser uses it, Wordsworth uses it, Byron uses it. Some people will say various things. They will tell you that iambic pentameter approximates most nearly the sound of human speech. That sounds nice. It turns out not to be true. It is simply not true. People don't speak in iambic pentameter. We would notice that. Some people will tell you that iambic pentameter sounds like a human heartbeat. This is also a wonderful, persuasive, beautiful argument that's just not true. It's not true. Cardiologists, if your heartbeat isn't steady iambic pentameter, check into the Cleveland Clinic. Maybe get a stent. Right? It's not quite true. Why do people use it? Because other people have used it. It's a tradition. It's a convention. People have heard it and it works. And so people keep using what has worked before and build on that. Just like people use the 12-bar blues. Just like people write pop songs with choruses because it's worked before. It's just a tradition. Is it the only way? Is iambic pentameter naturally superior to every other form of poetry? No. Hip hop is really, really trochaic. Trochaic as a mother. Mother is a trochaic word. A longer compound is also heavily trochaic. The great American poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote an entire long epic poem that was very famous in its day and for some time after, called Hiawatha, strictly in trochaic meter. The rhythm is really, it can work. Iambic pentameter is important because it's central to the tradition. It works a lot. That said, it has certain formal benefits. The beat on the second the beat on the second of the pairs of syllables gives it a kind of forward propulsion. Shakespeare, especially, is downshifting a little. In his early days, there's a real driving iambic beat. His peer and early poetic role model, Christopher Marlowe, really has a good driving iambic pentameter beat. Ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. Two households both alike in dignity. In fair order, where they are seen, you can really chew up some scenery with it. The percussion is on the downbeat. It moves forward, and you end on that strong beat. Secondly, the 5 feet, the 10-syllable about, or sometimes 11, 5-foot line is fairly flexible. One reason is a shorter line, the next shorter down is called tetrameter, 4 feet. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not mind me sitting here to watch his woods up with snow. I just misquoted Frost, but worse, I turned it into a sing-song thing. Trochaic tetrameter can be nice. It can get super sing-songy. His woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. It's not fair to do to Frost. I just picked a famous example to pick up. There are worse poets who do that without abusive line reading by people on YouTube. Also, along the longer line, and we will meet a longer line at the end of every 9th line of the Fairy Queen will be a longer line, will be a hexameter line, 6 feet. It tends to break up in the middle. There's always this pause in the middle. 5, if you have a pause somewhere in the middle, it could come 2 feet in, it could come 3 feet in. It's never quite down the center, and you can put it into various places. Pentameter turns out to be a very flexible line that a lot of poets have done a lot of things with, and people keep using it because it's worked before and it has some effects and it keeps working. So get used to it. We're going to see iambic pentameter a whole lot of time. When we stop hearing iambic pentameter in this poem, it won't be because iambic pentameter went out of fashion. It's because poets are writing nothing but iambic pentameter couplets every single day, all the time, 24/7, and we will switch to prose.